to my YouTube channel. It's your girl B Monroe, and on today's video, as you can tell by the title, this is going to be a story time, kind of tipsy edition about my crazy ex. So let's get right into this tea. We're gonna call oh boy, we're gonna call him Marvin. Now, me and Marvin were together for basically a year. How it started was he hit me up on Instagram. At first, I didn't pay him any attention. Later on down the line, he wrote me again and I paid him attention. And I felt like, you know what, okay, why not? So we got to talking, one thing led to another. We finally decided to meet up and meet each other for the first time in person. He came up to my friend's house. At the time, I was hanging out with my friend. I asked her if it was okay if we smoked with him, because at this time I was smoking. And she said it was perfectly fine. So he came over, we chatted up, I would say for about an hour. Everything seemed cool. Like, we were just very, I don't know, like y'all know how it is. Like, when you first meet somebody, like, you kind of shy. So especially, I would say more for like females than I guess males. But I mean, correct me if I'm wrong. Let me know if y'all ever been shy going to see a female for the first time. So comment down below. Tell me y'all's first stories on when y'all met somebody, if y'all were shy or not. Like, fill me in. Let me know I'm not the only one out here. So anyway, we got done chatting it up. He went his way, I went mine. My friend told me she wasn't really feeling his vibe. I was just like, girl, you're tripping. He's cute, he seems nice and down to earth and all this other stuff. Basically, long story short, we started dating. And when we started dating, everything was fine for the utmost part. I mean, of course it's gonna be fine. That's the honeymoon stage for anybody's relationship, so duh. But anywho, he seemed very genuine at first, very caring at first, very loving at first, very protective at first. Which I didn't see it as a red flag, the protective part, for the simple fact, in my relationships before him, guys didn't really show that they cared whatsoever on anything that I did. So it was like basically like a nice touch to like be with somebody who actually cares. While we were dating, it starts to go downhill. It starts to go down like, y'all know like how it is on roller coasters when you like going up and it's like inching and it's itching up, up, up. It's like that when it's just going like up. And then you kind of get this woman's intuition that maybe everything is just a little bit too great. Maybe everything is just too perfect, because I mean, for real, y'all, like, nobody's perfect. I'm not perfect. So I have flaws too. Little to my knowledge, I didn't realize that he was basically a drinker till it came down to when he would spend the night at my house or when I would spend the night at his. That's when I started to really realize the drinking problem. For the simple fact, he would wake up and like take like 7 shots of liquor and then like smoke weed. Or if he didn't have liquor, he would like drink a couple beers and then smoke after. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, dude, like, we're waking up at maybe like 10, like 11 a.m. and the first thing you think about before brushing your teeth is drinking. But at that time, I felt like we were kind of too early in our relationship. I would say we were probably like maybe 3 months in. So I felt that I couldn't really persuade him to slow down on his drinking, because I feel like in the beginning of a relationship, you're kind of like, well, I'm getting to know you, so like you really don't have a say so on what I feel like doing, kind of thing. So I was kind of like minding my business. He was still being sweet and genuine. I would say about, when it gets 2 months go by, so it's 5 months now. 5 months in, it's starting to get distant between us. He's not really texting me. He's not really calling me back. At the time, he was a chef at a restaurant, but I knew his work schedule. He would send me pictures of his work schedule. And even the times when he wasn't at work, he would say like, oh, I was super busy, I couldn't text you back, I was with friends, I was with family, blah, blah, blah. And not saying I'm the type of person where you can't have a life outside of me, but I would appreciate like some type of communication. Like, just don't go the whole day not telling me anything, but then you're hitting me up in the middle of the night like, oh, I'm sorry, I was out with my friend or my brother all day. Like, that just seems kind of fishy when it comes down to it. But I was kind of giving him the benefit of the doubt, aka naive, aka gullible, basically. And I was just like, oh, well, you know, he's busy. At the time, he was like very older than me. He was, I would say, 26. And at this time, I was just now about to probably turn, I was 19. Yeah, I was like 19. And he was going to be, he was 26. Because when we first started dating, yeah, he was 25. And then later on, his birthday came and he turned 26. Yeah, so he's like 26 and I'm 19. Sorry, y'all. I was trying to think of the math, trying to get my facts right here. And with everything being distant and with him drinking and all that other stuff, he basically was like slowly stopped including me in on things, like when it came to his friends or like outings or things of that nature. And he told me that the reason why he was doing that is because he was like, well, I know that you don't like parties, which is true. I don't like parties. I don't at all. So he's not lying. But I was still like, well, even though I don't like parties, you can still like invite me. You can still like let me in on things sometimes. You know, I would still go for the sake of you, to show you like I could basically do the things that you enjoy. So being at parties with his kind of friend crowd wasn't really my thing. Like, they were basically like the kind of people that like to do like all kinds of different drugs. They weren't like really like 1 or 2 glasses of wine or like 4 shots in and I'm done. They were like basically like binge drinkers, pill poppers, the whole 9. Which I'm not the person to judge. I mean, everybody does whatever they feel like they want to do in life. I just didn't really feel comfortable around that. So eventually he was like picking up on my vibe and he could tell that I was uncomfortable. So we ended up going home. And when we went home, we ended up at my house because he was dropping me off. And the next day we were going to hang out but go to his cousin's house because his cousin ended up moving into some nice like condo that wasn't that far from my house at the time. So we were just like, oh, we could just go and hang out over there. He didn't tell me that he was going to drink or anything, but at the same time, he didn't have to tell me at this point. I was used to him drinking every day. Sorry, you guys. Every time we were together, he was drinking. Like, that was never anything new. So we go over there. We're at his cousin's house and his cousin's girlfriend is there. They were both like very welcoming, very nice people. While we're there, he's like drinking, like he's taking shots to the head, he's drinking beers, he's smoking weed, he is doing like the whole 50 thou at this point. And mind y'all, I'm not about to act like I was over here being perfect. Like, I was smoking too, I was, but I wasn't drinking, I was just smoking, and I was chatting it up with his cousin's girlfriend. So his cousin and Marvin go outside to have a conversation, I guess in private or whatever. And me and her were sitting there chatting it up. But before Marvin goes outside, he throws me his phone. He's like, hey, hold on to my phone or whatever. And at the time, I really didn't pick up on how weird it was that he gave me his phone. I was just kind of like in so depth of the conversation with her. I just like grabbed his phone. I was like, yeah, okay. And I sat it on my lap. And I wasn't looking at it. I know most of y'all would have been like, girl, if he over here being distant with me, like I would have went through that phone, like what are you doing, blah, blah, blah. But I was just so like naive and gullible, like I just told y'all a couple minutes ago. I really was. Like I really gave this man the benefit of the doubt with everything. Like I just felt like if I don't really have the proof to tell that you're a cheater, I'm not going to hurry up and put in my mind that you're a cheater. So that's what I was basically doing. 20 minutes into the conversation with her, his phone just starts going ballistic. Like a girl named Brittany is calling him, and she's just calling him and calling him and calling him. And I'm just looking down, and I'm like smoking, talking to her, and I'm looking down. And I'm smoking, I'm looking down, because she's just calling like back to back. Like as soon as it ends up going to voicemail, she's calling again. Like homegirl was not playing. And I'm like, I look at her, like his cousin's girlfriend. I said, do you know what Brittany? And she's like, no, I don't know Brittany. I was like, are you sure? And she was like, yeah. I was like, he doesn't have a cousin named Brittany? Because at this time, I really didn't meet that much of his family. Like I met 2 of his brothers and his mom and dad, which I mean, that is pretty much the family, but it wasn't like I met all the cousins, all the, I don't know, other cousins and uncles and aunties, and it wasn't like that. It was just basically the immediate family. And she was like, no, I don't know of a girl named Brittany. And I was just like, okay. And she sees that the phone's going off, like, cause she wasn't that far from me. Like she was probably, I wish I could really give y'all a measurement, but homegirl wasn't that far basically. And we're sitting there and she's like, are you gonna answer it? And I was like, well, I don't feel right answering his phone. Like I know how I am with my phone. Like I feel like if you don't pay my phone bill, don't answer my phone. That's just how I am. Like yell to me, tell me somebody's calling me, tell me I got a text, but don't feel the need to go in my phone and stuff. Like that's my privacy. So I was basically like respecting his, and I was like, I don't want to go through it. So she was like, well, just answer the next time she called. Homegirl calls again, and she's like, just answer it. So I finally pick it up. I was like, hello? And she's like, hello, where is Marvin? Who is this? Who's answering his phone? And I was like, what do you mean who's answering his phone? I was like, his girlfriend's answering his phone. She was like, his girlfriend? I was like, yeah, his girlfriend. She was like, you can't be his girlfriend. I was like, how you gonna tell me? Like, we've been dating for a couple months. And she's like, a couple months? She's like, no, that's false. Like, basically, like, homegirl's in full blown in denial. And I was like, yeah, we have been together. And she's sitting there, and she's just like, his cousin was sitting there looking at me, and she could tell like what the conversation was about just based off of what I was saying. And she's looking like in amazement, like, what is really going on? Like, what is he on? Like, what is he doing, kind of thing. And I told her, I said, well, who are you to him? And she said, I'm his girlfriend. I literally sat there, I dropped the phone. Homegirl was still talking loud on the phone. You could hear girly, like she was like if a rat could cuss, it was like a rat on the floor going off. And I head out the door. And at this point, I really couldn't believe it, because I feel like the kind of woman that I am, I'm the kind of woman where I feel like if you don't feel me no more, if you don't like me, if you lost love for me, if you want to test the waters with little Sally Sue up the road, whatever the case may be, I feel like that you should just let me go. I would never hang on to a man that I have lost feelings for. That is something I would never do. I've been through that. That is a story for another time. But I have been through that, and I just don't like that. So I always told myself, like, I would never put somebody through that, because I know how that feels. I'm just not that type of person. If I'm not feeling you, you will know. I will cut all creases, all corners, and tell you the real, and not waste your time, because everybody deserves happiness. Everybody deserves real love at the end of the day. That's just the type of woman that I am. So anywho, I go outside. He's standing there barely holding a cigarette, y'all. He like, look like leaning. like leaning basically. And I'm over here and I'm just looking at him and he's like, what? Like, what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? And I was like, who's Brittany? And he like gives me this look like, but then he just goes back. It's like his drunkenness went away for 2 seconds and he like knew what was up. As soon as I said her name, he was just like, oh crap. And he's like, oh, well, I don't have time for this drama. I don't know who that is that's calling my phone. I don't know what she done told you. It's probably one of my exes. Now, how I feel is if it's really an ex, a guy will be like, it's my ex. A guy won't sit there and say, it's probably one of my exes. It's probably somebody. I feel like a guy will literally sit there and say, like, it's my ex kind of thing. So when he said it was like, it's probably one of my exes, I'm over here like, probably. Like, I know my ex before you. So if it was my ex calling me, I want to sit there and say, oh, it's probably one of my exes. I'm going to sit here and be like, it's my ex. You get me? Y'all one with me? Like, y'all get what I'm saying? So I wasn't feeling that. Like, so I'm over here upset. His cousin is like looking like, kind of like, oh crap, like this is awkward kind of thing. And I'm walking off, and as I'm walking off, he's like, oh, you're really gonna believe some girl over me? I promise you it's an ex, blah, 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 this, that, and the third. And then I end up going home, and when I go home, he's blowing me up. I block his number. He calls me off of texting app numbers. I blocked those numbers. He messaged me on Instagram. I blocked his Instagram. He created a whole other Instagram, messaged me on Instagram, begging for me to give him another chance because whatever this girl told me isn't the truth. It's his ex from back in the day. She saw it because she finally saw us on Instagram, and he was like, the day I post you on Instagram is the day she calls my phone claiming we're together. Don't you think that's weird? And at the time, it really did make sense because our whole entire relationship, the times that I have been around him, no female had called his phone, had texted him, or anything like that. So when he said that, being gullible, naive me, I went back. I told him, like, you just need to block her number, and I'll take you back, and we could work this out, and blah, blah, blah. He apologized, claimed he was so sorry. He don't know what went down and why she want to appear now, probably because she wants him back and all this other stuff. So I don't hear from little Miss Brittany no more. I don't see her pop up on his phone no more. I say we're now 8 months into the relationship. He's still drinking excessively. As far as girls popping up, it wasn't like that. Like, our relationship became stronger after little Miss Brittany popped up. So I was like kind of happy with that, but like in the back of my mind, I just couldn't help but to feel that I was being lied to, if that makes sense. Like, I just couldn't help but to feel like there's a little bit more to this story. You're not getting it right now, but there's a little bit more to it. But I wasn't like pushing the envelope. I didn't keep asking him about the situation because every time I asked him, like, it was always the same answer. It was never like something else. And I'm the kind of person where, like, I'm a listener. So I will be very, very quiet and will listen to every single word that you say to see if I can catch you up on a lie. That's just how I am. And I couldn't catch him up on a lie. I really couldn't. So I ended up letting it go. He was still like working and doing all the things that he had to do for him. And we were basically seeing each other like at least every day or every other day. So the next time we see each other, we go to his friend's house. And his friend was throwing like a little kickback at the time. And it was like, I would say maybe like 15 people there. But it was like girls that were there that were like looking at me like they basically had an issue. And I asked him, like, who is this girl? And he was like, oh, I don't know who she is. I don't know why she's looking at you like that. We could just leave if you want to leave. And I'm like, yeah, okay, let's leave. So we end up leaving. The next day comes around and I'm on Instagram. I'm just sliding down on my timeline. Like, I'm not even around him at this point. I'm at my own home. And I get a message from some random girl, just out the blue. And she's like, "Are you Marvin's girlfriend?" And I was like, "Yeah, who are you?" And she was like, "Oh, well, I was talking to him for a couple of weeks, and he told me he didn't have a girlfriend." And at this time, I'm thinking she's lying. Let me tell y'all what's good, what's really tea. What really happened was, I felt like I was all over his Instagram. So how couldn't you know about me? Because I'm all over his Instagram, right? This dude made a whole other Instagram with just pictures of him, like 4-5 pictures of him, 1,000 followers. Okay, this is like an Instagram he been had, basically, because like he had a good little following going. And he had single in his bio and all that, and was like basically like leaving captions like he was basically like looking for some type of female. And she sent me all the receipts. Like, I asked her to send me like their text messages, the receipts and all that. So she sends me that, and I'm reading all their messages and I'm mad. Like, he's asking when he's going to see her. He knew where she worked at. She knew where he worked at. It was a day where they were supposed to meet, but she got busy. He talked about how he was salty about it because he wanted to her, all kinds of stuff. And I was just like, wow. So I call him on the phone and I'm like, "You know what, like, we need to talk. Like, can you come over here?" He's like, "Oh yeah, babe, I'll come over." You know, he's oblivious. Like, he doesn't know that I know, because I told her to play along. I told her, like, keep texting him so he doesn't expect anything. Like, play like everything's normal. And she was like, "Okay." So he comes over to my house and he's like, "Oh, I brought some weed so we could smoke." And how it is at my house, I basically would like smoke in the basement. When I was smoking, I would always smoke in the basement because I just don't like how the weed smell always just lingers. I just don't like that. So I'd rather just smoke in the basement. So we're in the basement, we're smoking, and basically I bring it up to him and I was just like, "Oh, I gotta show you a picture. I gotta show you this picture." And he's like, "A picture? A picture of what?" I was like, "Oh my gosh, when you see this picture, it's gonna be hilarious." He's like, "Okay." So I'm like this with my phone, and he's like reading it. Reads the message where he was talking about how he wanted to F her, how she's the baddest girl he has ever seen, how he can't wait to be around her, what he's gonna do to her when he sees her. And his face just turns red. Like, he was like very super light complected, so his face just turned red, and he just knew, like, "Bro, like, you're caught up, bro. Like, there's no lie. Like, you can't lie to me like how you lied when Lil Miss Britney popped up, that you was most likely really messing with this girl because you're messing with this other girl." And I was just sitting there upset. So I'm like, "Bro, like, you're really a liar. Like, you're really wasting my time. Like, why would you do that?" And he was like, "Oh, I love you. This really isn't what it is." All this other stuff. So we break up. While I'm telling him, like, "I'm done, I'm over you," he like stands up and starts talking mad-ish about me. He's like, "Oh, I didn't even want you anyway. You think I cared you broke up with me? You're not even pretty. You're basic. You're just a basic light skin, blah, blah, blah." Like, basically like trying to go in. And I'm like, "Okay, bro, like, that's cool. That's cool. That's sweet and all, but get the fuck up out my house," kind of thing. So I tell him to go. I'm walking up the stairs. He's like getting mad, like cussing and yelling. I'm like, "Okay, that's fine." So then one thing basically leads to another, and we're getting into a heated argument in the living room. And while we're arguing, he basically tries to get like physical and all that other stuff. And I was just like, okay, this is even more of a sign, like, bro, you're crazy. So he ends up leaving. Weeks go by. I would say 2 weeks go by. I don't hear from him. It's like he literally went MIA. Like, I don't hear from him or anything. I didn't want to hear from him. Let me clarify. I did not want to hear from him. So I didn't care. But yeah, so he disappears for like 2 weeks. Then all of a sudden, I'm gone. Like, I'm not home. I come back home, my neighbor is like meeting me outside before I can even get into my home. And he tells me like, bro, your window is busted out in the back. And I'm like, the window to what? Like, I didn't even believe what he was saying. And he's like, your window. And I'm like, what window? He's like, the window. The window to the back of your house is busted out. Who busted your window? I'm like, what? I don't know who busted my window. Like, I just got back from work. Like, what you mean? So I sit there and I'm looking, and like I walk inside my house. I walk past the living room, walk past the dining room, and I see the back window, and I see a Corona bottle. And it's only one stupid little dude that I know that drink Corona. And I knew it was him. So I was like, this is the kind of game you want to play? Like, bro, you're wildin'. Like, what's wrong with you? Like, you cheated on me, not once, but twice. And the first time I was stupid and took you back. So, like, you cheated on me. Now you're going to sit here and start busting up stuff? So I end up calling him, and I'm like, what did you get out of like busting up stuff? And he's like laughing on the phone, and then hangs up on me. Then I try to call back again. It went straight to voicemail, like he turned his phone off or blocked me or whatever have you. So I'm just like, okay, bro, like I guess, like I see that's how it's about to be, whatever. So I end up getting my window fixed. The maintenance man comes because I call emergency maintenance. So they come and they fix the window, but it wasn't like really fixed that day. Like they put like a big ass, thick ass brown board on my window. And then the next day they came and fixed it. Then after that, I hear somebody pounding on my door like 2 days later. And I'm like, bro, who is that? And it's him yelling outside my door, begging for me to open the door. And I'm like, bro, I'm not going to open the door. Like, you need to leave. Like, I'm not going to open the door. And he's like, no, you need to open the door. You need to open the door. Like, I need to tell you something. He's like, I need the rest of my stuff. I'm like, you don't even have stuff here. What are you talking about? I'm like, you just need to go. Like, bro, I'm cool on you. Like, I'm done. Like, no. So he ends up leaving. But before he leaves, he throws something at my door and I hear it shatter. I open the door. It's a freaking Hennessy bottle. Y'all, he threw a Hennessy bottle at my front door, y'all. Like, I was just like, first it's a Corona bottle. Now it's a Hennessy bottle. So at this point, what I'm getting out of this is you go to the liquor store, you get stupid pissed drunk, and then you come harass me. Okay, and I'm over here in my peacefulness, you know, not even bothering you, not popping up to your house, not doing no type of bitter, no type of salty female stuff, because that's not me. Like, no matter how bad a guy has done me in the past, I never am like, oh, I'm about to go mess up your car. Oh, I'm about to mess up your clothes. Oh, I'm about to harass your new girlfriend. Like, I never do anything like that, because at the end of the day, I take it as a lesson learned and I keep it pushing. And that's just what I do. But it's like with him, it was no type of keeping it pushing. Then he turns around, starts calling me, crying on the phone, talking about he has a gun to his head. He's about to commit suicide if I don't hurry up and call him back. All this other stuff. And I hear him cocking the gun on the phone. And I knew he had guns in his home. I saw that there were guns in his home. So I would call him back, being the caring person that I am. I don't want you to kill yourself over me. Like, I'm not worth anybody's life. And I would sit there and call him, and then he'll be like, oh, I wasn't gonna kill myself. I just wanted to see if you still care about me. Obviously you still do. Why won't you just give me another chance? And I'm like, bro, like, you're sick and twisted. Like, who plays about suicide? Like, that's something that people really do. Like, that's not something to play about. So that happened. Then after that, he came back to my house again. This time he busted the windshield to the car that I had, busted the windshield out, And at that point, it was just too much going on. So like, I was like, well, I'm just going to call the police because it's just too much. Like at this point, like you're just harassing me for no reason. So I called the officer. They ended up coming over. It was no help. I really wish I would have never called them in the first place, because all they said was, did you see him do it? And I was like, no, I didn't see him do it. I heard it, but I didn't see him do it. They're like, oh, well, it could have been anybody. Girl, I'm not walking around here making enemies. Like, for one, I don't walk around here making enemies. For two, I don't invite people to my house. I really don't. Like, if you at my house, it's a privilege. Like, I'm not just over here inviting people like, hey, let's hang. Like, that's not what I do. So I was automatically irritated and offended with that. So since that was a no help, I was like, well, I'll just go to the courthouse. I'll file a protection order or restraining order or whatever. So they told me I could file a protection order, and that's what I did. And the irritating part about that was they were like, well, we don't have any kind of evidence that he's harassing you. And I was like, well, I have text messages of him harassing me. I have him messaging me from multiple Instagram accounts that he done made harassing me. Like, what are you talking about? And they're like, oh, well, we have to take your phone for evidence. So I was irritated with that, because I'm like, you're not gonna take my phone, first of all, like what you thought. And I was just like, well, I'll just make copies of it. So I made copies of it, ended up going back down there. That worked. So they put the protection order in place. Then, since he lived in a different county than mine, that was an issue. So they were saying that they couldn't get it to his direct address because he lived in a different county, and they would have to go down to that county and talk to them and get them to send out the protection order. Like, it was just so much. Like, I just felt like at that point, like, he was just sending me messages, like, talking about he was going to kill me. Like, he was going to make sure I died. He came up to my job several times harassing me. My managers literally had to beg him to leave, or they were going to call the police on him. He would come to my job pissed drunk, harassing me. Like, it was just so much going on, and the police weren't help. The courthouse wasn't help. And at this point, I was just like, bro, like, if he killed me, like, at this point, that's just that, because nobody's coming to my rescue with anything. Like, nobody's really caring. Like, and I really feel like it's just mainly because I'm young, and they probably felt like, since I'm young, oh, she'll probably go back to him anyway, so like, why try to help her, kind of thing, I guess. But they finally ended up getting the protection order down to him, and it was the first time he was supposed to show up for a court appearance. I showed up, he did not. The second time I showed up, he did not. The third time I showed up, he did not. After the third time, I asked them if I could have somebody else come in my place, because at that point I was just basically done. Because at that point I was in school, and I'm like, I'm missing out of school for this, for somebody that's not even trying to come to basically handle this kind of issue that we obviously have, because you're a psycho. So they told me that I could have somebody come down, but it'll have to be somebody that has been like a witness to the situation at hand. And I told them, like, my mother has, and they were like, well, that's fine, she can come. So she comes as my replacement. The protection order ends up going in place and all that, and that's when things like slowly start coming back to normal. I'm not coming home to broken windows and things thrown at my door. I'm not getting no more threatening phone calls. No more about to claim suicide, but then I call and he's laughing on the phone talking about he's not, but I still care about him. Why not we get back together? No more of that, because they basically told him, like, you can't have any communication with her at all. If we find out that you have and she has proof that you have, then you will go to jail. So yeah, that's basically my crazy ex story. I just advise you guys to, like, if you see any red flags with a guy or a woman, because I'm not gonna act like us women, we're all not psycho. Some of us are a little bit touched. And I just feel like with a man or with a woman, like, if you see any red flags, or it becomes harassment or anything, like I advise you guys to get some type of protection order, restraining order, do whatever you have to do, because at the end of the day, your safety and your mental health is more important than anything. Like, being in that relationship, it made me literally look over my shoulder, because like, he knew my routine. He knew where I was gonna be, what time I was gonna be at that place. Like, he knew all that stuff. So it would be times where I would be out in public and he would just like pop up on me, or it would be times where I'm taking the trash out of my house and he's outside of my house just watching me. And then by the time I call the police, by the time the police come to my house, he's already gone and they're not really trying to do anything about it. So I just advise you guys, like, you know, do what you have to do. Like, make sure you protect yourself. If somebody is threatening you or if somebody is causing harm to you, please leave that person alone, because it is not worth it. If somebody is cheating on you, obviously they do not love you. And yeah, that's that. But thank you guys for watching this video. Like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know down below if you guys have any crazy ex stories. I would love to read them and comment back to you guys and let you know everything else that was in that whole scenario with Mr. Marvin. So yeah, but this is your girl B Monroe. Thank you, gang, for watching, and I'm out. Bye, you guys.